When it comes to a new John Mayer tour, one of the most exciting parts I know for me and a lot of you guys is to see what amps John actually brings out to form his amp rig for that tour. And although the John Mayer solo tour is primarily an acoustic tour with John just up there performing 95% acoustic songs all night, he is doing an electric portion and has brought out some really cool amplifiers, although this amp rig is a bit different than what we're used to seeing from John in terms of the number of amplifiers and also even the power that he has on stage. So in today's video, we're going to break down John Mayer's amp rig for the solo tour that's currently happening right now and discuss some details about the amps, their history, as well as why this amp setup is a bit different and maybe why John chose these specific amplifiers to make up his rig. So let's get into today's video. It's going to be a good one. Sit back, relax, and enjoy, you guys. So when it came to the opening night of this tour, one thing I was really interested in seeing was this amp setup that John was going to be using for the electric portion of the evening. And the amp rig too was also in my mind going to dictate, okay, if it's a larger amp rig, we're probably going to expect to see a lot more electric guitar in play and maybe more of an equal balance between electric and acoustic. Or if it's a smaller amp rig, odds are it's probably going to be more acoustic heavy and the electric guitar part's not going to be that massive in terms of what John's playing. And sure enough, that theory kind of panned out in the amps that John chose. Now he's using a 2 amplifier setup, which is a bit strange for reasons we're going to discuss later on in this video, but he's using a Fender VibroVerb from 1964, which is one of my personal favorite amplifiers that John has ever used. It's a brilliant sounding amplifier, and there's a lot of history with John and the Fender VibroVerb. I've done a whole video dedicated to just a deep dive on John and this amplifier. It'll be carded up above on your screen if I can remember to do that post-editing, but it'll be in the description down below for sure, so go and check that out if you haven't already. But he's using that Fender VibroVerb in pair with a Dumble Overdrive Special. Now, this Dumble is really interesting because it's actually a 50-watt overdrive special head, and one that we saw John using with Dead & Company in 2019. So right away, you have about a 40-watt Fender amplifier and a 50-watt Dumble amplifier. Those 2 amplifiers alone, and that's not a lot of firepower compared to what we're used to seeing John bring out on a bigger tour. Now, when I say that seeing 2 amplifiers on stage with John is a bit weird, it's because when we look at his amp history, it usually follows the main formula of 3 amplifiers, and generally we can expect a Fender flavor, a 2-rock, and a Dumble. Those 3 amplifiers in combination kind of comprising the main components and almost like the secret sauce of John's sound. Those 3 style of amplifiers working together, although he has deviated from that formula in the past and still sounded absolutely brilliantly. But if we look at, for example, Sobrock was a Fender Bandmaster, Dumble Steel String Singer 004, and a 2-rock John Mayer signature amplifier. Even if we look at the Battle Studies era, it was Dumble Steel String Singer 002, a John Mayer signature 2-rock, and then a Fender Bandmaster as well. So you usually have a 3 amp setup that follows John on any major tour, and all 3 amplifiers are always on, working together to create that beautiful amp tone. But of course, the John Mayer solo tour is a bit of a different animal. He doesn't have a band backing him, so in reality, he probably doesn't need 3 amplifiers running together, although just using the Fender VibroVerb on its own might not be quite enough, or just giving John as much depth to his tone as at least 1 extra amplifier would add, and that being the Dumble Overdrive Special 50-watt head that we're seeing on stage with John for this tour. Now, it's been a while since we've seen John actually use a Dumble Overdrive Special in his own career. We've seen them used with Dead & Company, but for John's actual mainline tour, you guys get what I'm trying to say here. A Dumble Overdrive Special, to see that again, is pretty special no matter what incarnation it is, if it's a 70s, 80s, 90s Dumble ODS, because when we think back, at least when I think back to Dumble Overdrive Specials and their really special place in John's career, I think of the Continuum era, I think of the John Mayer Trio era, the original John Mayer Trio era, and those amplifiers played such an important part in the sounds of Continuum and the original John Mayer Trio. Of course, the Steel String Singers took over as a main Dumble flavor, but going back to an ODS is just really awesome to see. I do think the 50-watt Overdrive Special is a great choice for this tour because John doesn't need a bunch of 100-watt amp heads on stage with him for what he's performing. Even though he's performing arenas and stadiums, that 50-watt Dumble ODS is going to really complement that VibroVerb very nicely in the combination that he's using, and the tones between an ODS and the VibroVerb especially really go back to the John Mayer Trio days, which I just really, truly love. But again, just very unexpected to actually see a ODS take the stage with him for all of John's kind of main solo career things and performances. Now, the cab choice for these two amplifiers is also very interesting. As I mentioned, we've come right off of that John Mayer Trio performance that happened, and I've done a whole breakdown of that amp rig as well. That video will be in the description down below also. But the same kind of combination we've seen with this has kind of taken over again in terms of we actually have seen the Fender VibroVerb on top of an Alessandro 212 cabinet, and John's actually miking that up and running the Fender VibroVerb through that cabinet using a 212 cabinet instead of the one single 15-inch JBL speaker that is in his VibroVerb. So very interesting that we're starting to see John actually use an external cabinet for the VibroVerb, which is something that we haven't seen before until this year, 2023, at the time of making this video. Then, of course, the Dumble Overdrive Special actually is sitting on top of a vertical 2-rock cabinet, a 212 cabinet, and it's one of the older cabinets that John had way back in the early 2000s with 2-rock, not the more modern ones with the logo in the center and a bigger badge and everything like that. It's not one of those cabinets. So this is very interesting to see John actually, number one, again, bringing out another 2-rock cabinet for the John Mayer Trio show that just happened and this tour. We haven't seen him use 2-rock cabinets since 2008, about kind of the end of Continuum era as things were transitioning into the Battle Studies era. Shortly after Where the Light Is actually is when he transitioned into using Alessandro cabinets over those 2-rock cabinets. And it's really been the last time we've seen a 2-rock cabinet used by John, which is just really cool. Okay, so I have a bit of a theory as to why John is actually using this 2-rock cabinet again. Now, when you look at the cabs that he was using in the past, it was all PRS-made cabinets. Now, essentially the JMod cabinet or a 112 version of the JMod cabinet that was kind of custom built for John. I've tried to look into getting one ordered, and it's, something PRS just doesn't offer. So they obviously custom made those 112 cabinets for John, but even the Alessandro cabinets, between those and the JMods, they're all vertically orientated. Now, of course, I'm sure John could have easily gotten a JMod cabinet built that's vertically orientated like the 2-rock, but instead, if you look at the amp rig here on this tour, just looking at it now, the ODS head on top of that vertical 2-rock cabinet and then the VibroVerb on top of the Alessandro cabinet, they're almost the same height. And aesthetically wise, it's very pleasing and it looks good together, although a bit unorthodox seeing that VibroVerb on top of an Alessandro cabinet, but it just works the way it's kind of stacked all together. Now, I'm not saying that John and, Jeremy were playing a game of amp and cabinet Tetris to make it all fit properly, but aesthetically it is just very pleasing, and I can't help but wondering if that did play a role, because if he used a JMod cabinet or a second Alessandro cabinet even, the amp rig would have been very wide, or it would have looked weird. And it's always nice to have the cabinets and the speakers all tight together and very much in that same blocking where they are, instead of it being a bit wider of a thing, although that's what he's done before on tours with the JMod cabinets before. But for me, just looking at it, it's very compact and it just looks great, and I can't help but wonder if that played a role in John actually using the 2-rock cabinet again, specifically for this amp rig. That said, John just could be really enjoying the 2-rock cabinets again and using them. I mean, we can dream to see John maybe going back to a very early Continuum setup with 3 2-rock cabinets and the amplifiers all on top of them. Although something like a Dumbland or the Steel String Singers I don't believe would fit on top of those standard 2-rock cabinets. I mean, you just set them on top and just don't knock them over kind of deal. But at the same time, I don't know. It's very interesting to see nonetheless. I think the Alessandro cabinets are the best looking, that's for sure. Majority of my favorite performances are with those Alessandro cabs. So there's definitely something special to me about them just due to that very fact. But the really interesting bits here, you guys, with this amp rig are that there's an ODS in John's amp rig again for his mainline solo career performances and tones. There's a 2-rock cabinet in the mix again, as well as an Alessandro cabinet being used with that Fender VibroVerb. Very interesting amp arrangement in general, and it's kind of sad to see that we're not really seeing it a ton. We're not seeing these amps shine, or hearing them shine, I guess, as much as maybe, some of us would have liked for this tour. definitely would be cool to see a little bit more electric guitar and maybe some looping done as well, although John's kind of said he's not really interested in doing that on this tour. But who knows, the tour, it's still early on and we might see a lot more come out, but there you guys go. Very awesome amp rig that John is using for this tour, and who knows, maybe we'll see a 100-watt ODS come back into the mix, or that Dumble ad come back into the mix for the next actual tour that John does backing a album or just with the full band. Who knows, but I think we're in for a bit of a change up when it comes to John's amp rigs in the future. Maybe deviating a bit from the traditional formula of the steel string singer and 2-rock Mayer signature. And even when it comes to the Fender flavor, you generally would expect a bandmaster. So I have a slight suspicion that we might see a change up when it comes to his amp rigs overall. Instead of always expecting the Dumble steel string singer to be that Dumble flavor in his amp rig, maybe we will see the Dumble end or a 100-watt ODS come back. I think it could be really cool. I think it's time for a change up, and I'm here for that. I mean, those steel string singers sound great, but hey, you know what? It's always fun to change things up, shake it up, and here are some different amps and combinations, and maybe John finds a new favorite amp combination, although I'd expect it to be a 3-amp setup for any tour with a band, backing an album, sort of thing like that. We'll see 3 amps for sure. But there you guys go. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a comment down below your thoughts on John's amp rig. All the comments always help the algorithm and help the channel grow, so they're greatly appreciated as always. And as well, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. Again, just helps the video grow and helps my channel out and lets me as a creator know I'm doing a good job and to keep making videos like these. Last but certainly not least, if you guys made it all the way to the end of this video and you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel yet, please consider subscribing to it. You're going to get recommended my content no matter what at this point, but the subscription helps my channel grow as well. And again, just lets me know when I see that number growing that I'm doing a good job and to keep doing what I'm doing, so that's always greatly appreciated. And if you've subscribed already to the channel, thank you so much, and thanks for tuning back in to all the videos I'm putting out. Greatly appreciated, you guys. So take care, everyone. Let me know in the comments down below too. Any other things you want me to cover on the tour, all the different guitars I'm going to be talking about on the channel as well. So that is coming. But if there's anything else you're curious to hear from me, let me know in the comments down below. So take care, you guys. We'll see you soon.
Anyway, go ahead and click the subscribe button if you like what you see.